How's the trip?
It was easy. Only a 3-hour flight, so it was very easy. We have an airport there right on campus, so it's easy in and out.
How the boys doing?
They're good. Obviously, been playing on Sunday. We took off Monday. We practiced today, and then we'll take off tomorrow. I don't like going 3 days in a row before we play, especially at the end of the season. So we'll just watch a lot of film and kind of get ready for our practices on Thursday and Friday.
What's the biggest challenge, if there even is one, waiting up until game time from your arrival up until you play at NC State?
Just trying to be familiar with somebody that, you haven't played during the year. Once you get into the NCAA tournament, a little different for us. We played Tennessee and Gonzaga our last 2 games, and we played them in the Maui Invitational. We've played Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. We played Gonzaga the previous year in the PK 85. So we were both familiar with each other. We've actually played NC State a couple years ago in Brooklyn, and they have maybe 2 guys from that team. I think just 1 guy is still playing from that team. Maybe I'm wrong. So just trying to get familiar with NC State, and but also no different than any team here. Keep your focus on your own team.
Zach averaged 30 and 16 last month. I mean, are you seeing anything different from him, or different kind of focus, chip on his shoulder, anything like that, or is this just him?
No, he averages 25 and 13, so it's not like too far away from what he normally does. But we didn't take him out a whole lot. We just thought we had a situation where if they were going to stay one-on-one with him, we needed to be as aggressive as possible. But he was great on both ends. I think in the whole weekend, and really in the whole NCAA tournament. But he's been very consistent. He's one of those guys that that shows up, and he's always out there competing.
And how can you speak to his growth as a leader, just in your time?
Yeah, well, it's taken kind of a while for him to open up. For a guy that didn't play competitive basketball until his sophomore year in high school, you're just not sure of yourself. And he's a guy that's more of a competitor and leads by example than anything. But you start to see this year, especially the confidence. I think when you're National Player of the Year, it should give you some confidence, right? But he's really pretty soft-spoken up until this year. But he's had his moments where he speaks up, and you could tell he really wanted it, and he really willed us to a victory.
Do you believe the team's struggles in the NCAA tournament over the last few years have added an extra fire to you guys this year?
Yeah, just a purpose, and it wasn't something that when we got beat, like we weren't prepared or we weren't trying. Obviously there's another team there, and you have to give respect to that other team. But yeah, there's no doubt when you have that adversity, and you have to face that adversity, and I think that's something that we really talked about throughout the year, is not getting away from that. Sometimes when people say derogatory things about you, it upsets you, but when it's true, make some adjustments to that, and we really didn't change our conviction in terms of how we played. We just had to be better, and we added some pieces, and guys have improved, and we were an average 3-point shooting team last year, and this year we're the best team in the country. So if you put a guy like Zach Edey out there, and now you make a lot of threes with him, it's a really good balance. But our guys responded. You have to give them the credit, because they're the ones that really responded and played well.
How much are you looking forward to the sunshine? 70s, 80s, a little
there you
bit
go.
Indiana weather. How you looking forward to that?
Yeah, it's good. Anytime you can keep advancing. It's the first time in my coaching career, it's my 31st year, that ever had a practice in April. And so that piece of it, we've been to a lot of tournaments. We've been to that second weekend, but to be able to get to a Final Four and be able to get to Phoenix in nice weather, it's pretty cool.
If you could put it simply, I know it's kind of difficult to put special into terms, but when it comes to this team, what feeling do you have as far as what makes them special?
We've been in a lot of different games. We've been undefeated in non-conference 3 years in a row. We've won our league by 3 games back-to-back years, first time since I was in kindergarten in our league. And, our guys have stuck together. In my 19 years, we've had 1 McDonald's All-American. And so it kind of shows you we have no McDonald's All-Americans, but we have really good basketball players and guys that we thought highly of, and they've been able to hang in there. But I also think from a competitive nature, when things are stacked against us this year, especially in games when we get down, we've responded. And we haven't won every game, but we've been very successful. And so just kind of that resiliency, that comes out in those moments. We got down 11 to Tennessee in the first half, and we're up 2 at half, and we really put ourselves in a good position going into halftime.
Do you think you guys are playing your best basketball heading into the Final Four right now?
Yeah, I think so. Especially when you get on a neutral court. Utah State won the Mountain West. They got 6 teams in the tournament. We had a pretty convincing win against them. Then to beat programs like Gonzaga and Tennessee. The problem is everybody you're going to play can say the same thing. So it's like, but yeah, I think we're playing very good, and we got beat in our tournament, and I think a lot of coaches would talk. I don't think that's that big of a deal, even though it's hard as a competitor. You want to win all the games that you play.
Do you think there's something, especially about this team, you talked about one McDonald's All-American in the last 19 years.
Right.
Do you think there's something about the way you guys develop players that
Right.
has really led to this kind of moment where it is, unknown territory for a lot of these guys being in this position?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. For us, we really try to, recruit from a skill standpoint and just kind of a makeup. We've done a much better job here in the last 10 years. We've had the most wins in the Big Ten the last 10 years. And, getting guys that fit at Purdue, guys that want to get their education at Purdue, but also getting guys that love the game of basketball and will buy into it. And so, when you kind of solidify your top 2 to 3 guys in terms of scoring, now that role definition is so important. And I think we've done a good job with that role definition, across the board.
Anything else for Coach Bayer?
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.